All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Raiders and the season they had. And it was a forgettable one. So we'll talk about what went down and what they've done in the offseason so far, things like that. So this was Antonio Pierce's first and only full season as the Raiders head coach. And, I was hoping that it was going to work out and he was going to be the long term answer there, especially with how the Raiders finished off the year. They beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead on Christmas in 2023. They were a team that, gave you a hard time. And you were hoping that was going to continue. But it did not continue. It didn't. They lost 22-10 in the opener against Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. And but then week 2, they go to Baltimore. They take on the Ravens. They were down in that game, and they battled back and ended up winning that game 26-23. And you thought, here we go, the Raiders. Gardner Minshew was the starter. He played well with the Colts last year. This team is going to be might not win. Might not finish with a winning record, but they will give you a hard time. However, the following week, they took on the Panthers, who made a quarterback change. They put in Andy Dalton and benched Bryce Young, and Andy Dalton played really well in that game. He threw for over 300 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and Panthers ended up winning that game. But then the Raiders did bounce back. They ended up winning against the Browns because the Browns weren't very good last year. They won 20-16. Gardner Minshew was not great in that game. So they were 2-2. So okay, not bad. But they proceeded to lose their next 10 games. Yeah. They lost to the Broncos. Patrick Surtain had a pick 6 in that game. Lost by a couple of scores there. Then the Steelers came in and, they ran the ball all over them with Najee Harris and Justin Fields. They ran the ball for almost 200 yards against them. Lost 32-13. They lost to the Rams by 1 score. They lost to the Chiefs by 1 score. Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Joe Burrow had 5 touchdowns against them. So they lost that game. They went into the bye week. They came out of the bye week. They lost to the Dolphins. They lost to the Broncos again. They lost that close game to the Chiefs. Aiden O'Connell actually played well in that game. Brock Bowers had a good game, and we'll talk about him more in a second. But they lost because, there was that bobbled snap. They didn't have time left, and, the Chiefs were able to come away with the win. Then they lost to the Buccaneers in Tampa. They lost to the Falcons, and, Kirk Cousins was not great in that game, but they had to start Desmond Ridder. But, yeah, they lost that. They did win 2 straight games. They beat the Jaguars at home, and then they beat the Saints in New Orleans 25-10. Spencer Rattler started that game. But then they lost to the Chargers 34-20, and they finished 4-13. And Antonio Pierce was relieved of his duties as the head coach. And they did bring in Pete Carroll, which I loved that. I loved that move. But, yeah, it was not a great year for the Raiders. Quarterback play was not great. Gardner Minshew had 2,000 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, and 10 picks. I believe he broke his arm, and that's why he missed the final couple of games. Aiden O'Connell, when he played, he actually was he was better than Minshew. 1,600 yards passing, 8 touchdowns to 4 picks. Desmond Ridder also played a little bit. 458 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. They were not a very good running team, the Raiders. Their leading rusher was Alexander Madison. He only had 420 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. Amir Abdullah had 311 yards and 2 touchdowns. Zamir White, who I thought, showed you something towards the end of 2023. I thought he was going to be more of a factor. That ended up not being the case. He only had 183 yards rushing and a touchdown. Sincere McCormick had 183 yards rushing. Yeah, they were not great. Brock Bowers was one of the lone bright spots on the team. Had 1,194 yards receiving, 112 receptions, 5 touchdowns. Jacoby Myers had over 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. They did trade Devontae Adams midseason to the Jets. He only had 209 yards with them before he was traded. And then defensively, of course, Max Crosby finished with only 7.5 sacks. Did miss some games. You also had Adam Butler. He had 5 sacks. Christian Wilkins, who they brought in over from the Dolphins, he only had 17 total tackles and 2 sacks. He was disappointing. Jack Jones was their leading corner or defensive back with 3 picks. Leading corner, 3 picks. One of them was a pick 6. So, it was just not a great year for the Raiders. And looking at more in depth on their offense and defense, first of all, looking at their offense was 27th in total yards per game. Rushing yards were dead last. They averaged 79.8 rushing yards per game. Not good. Not good at all. Passing yards per game, they were 13th. Offensive line ranking was 18th in the NFL. Total touchdowns, they only had 30 total touchdowns, 10 rushing, 19 passing. And their turnover ratio was a minus 16. And then for their defense was 25th in points allowed per game, 15th in total yards allowed per game, 15th in passing yards allowed per game, 13th in rushing yards allowed per game. They were 23rd in sacks. They only had 36 sacks on the year and 22nd in interceptions overall. So this was a defense that really didn't turn the ball over or didn't get takeaways. And, with Max Crosby, only had 7.5 sacks. So, it was just a disappointing year all around for them. They play in a tough division. So far, what they've done in the offseason, they traded for Geno Smith, so they did get a clear upgrade at quarterback. Again, still tough division, but that is an upgrade. Pete Carroll is now the head coach, which I like that. They signed Darnay Holmes, a corner. They signed Raheem Mostert, who can still run the football effectively. I mean, he is in his 30s, could be somebody that gets hurt at a certain point, but I think he is an upgrade. They brought in Eric Stokes from the Packers. They kind of did a flip-flop in corners. The Packers got Hobbs, and they got Stokes. They signed Lonnie Johnson, a safety, Landon Roberts, a linebacker, Jeremy Chin, who was with the Commanders last year. They signed Alex Kappa to add to the offensive line. So, that's what the Raiders did. To me, going into next year, they're still going to be the team that I think is going to finish in last place. I mean, you had 3 of the 4 teams in the AFC West make the playoffs. I don't think we're going to see that next year. Maybe we do. But the Raiders, they are kind of that distant 4th team in the division right now. Now, that's not to say that they can't be better. I mean, I think with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith at quarterback, you can win more than 4 games. But it's going to be tough. It is a very tough division right now. Because, you got Sean Payton and Bo Nix. You got Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. And then you got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And Geno Smith, to me, is, 4th best quarterback in that division. Even with the Raiders upgrading it. To, from what they had last year. So, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, right now, they are picking, what are they picking at? I think they're picking at 6. I think they're picking at 6. But they could do a lot of different things with that. I mean, they could go, add a player from the defense or to the defense. They could go offense. They were not a very good running team last year. I mean, I think you still need more weapons to add to that offense. That could be a team that you could see take a Tetero and McMillan. That could be a team that I think Ashton Genty could go there. I mean, Raheem Mostert's not going to be... I mean, Raheem Mostert you brought in to be a veteran presence, in the running back room. But I think Ashton Genty could go there. You could see that. I mean, Pete Carroll... I shouldn't say he loves to run the football, because then you could say, well, what did he not do in Super Bowl... Super Bowl... Why is it blanking on me? Super Bowl 49. It was blanking. He didn't run the football, but Genty could go there. Could. Tetero McMillan. That could be a spot for him. Or could it be possible the Raiders, if they see Shedeur Sanders drop to them, would they take him? That's also a possibility, because the Raiders do need a quarterback. I don't think Geno Smith is the long-term answer. I think you need to have a future plan in place. But we'll have to wait and see. We will have to wait and see. But let me know what you guys think about the Raiders season. Actually, I wanted to bring up Brock Bowers again. I mean, like I said, he was one of the lone bright spots for them. He had a very good year. At least you have Brock Bowers, to build around on offense. But they need a lot more. They need some receivers. I mean, Jacoby Myers was good last year. Trey Tucker, but I think you need a true number one wide receiver. So, we'll see what they do. And running back is something they will definitely address. If they don't draft Gentry with the 6th pick, they could still go out and address the position later in the draft because it is a rich running back class from what we are hearing. So, yeah. So that's the Raiders. We got 3 more teams to cover: Broncos, Chargers, and Chiefs, and then that's it. And then I got to figure out what we're going to talk about in this segment. But, yeah, that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Got some new guys just starting, on the basketball podcast, on the college football podcast, and I think it's the Dead Ball Sports podcast. Hold on, I gotta fact check myself really quick here. But yeah, make sure to check out their shows. Make sure to check out the football podcast. And the wrestling podcast, Down by Contact. I'm trying to see. It's a Dead Ball Sports podcast. That's what it is. All right, because I know we have a bunch of different podcasts with sports in them. So this is the generic sports podcast, the simple. But because Jeremy hosts one, Nolan, like I said, he's hosting the Dead Ball Sports. So. Yeah, make sure to check out their shows. Leave like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channels. Make sure, even if when you're on the go, you can listen to us on Spotify or wherever else you get your podcasts from. And, appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.